technology in this case really seemed to have enhanced the learning experience, and also developing a new product with technology seems not necessarily predictable. So at what point in this journey of coming up with the idea, starting to collaborate, at what point did you start thinking about IP?
I raised it right at the beginning. I'm an open sourcer, especially when it comes to education. We've talked about that. We've not made a final policy decision, but as Nico said earlier, we want to be able to share this. This was developed at the university for educational purposes with university resources. I've probably been thinking about it from the beginning and have shared my perspective. But we haven't had that meeting yet. We haven't talked to university council. We haven't sort of looked at it and involved our faculty from a policy standpoint. All of those things have to happen, in due course. But we're much more obsessed with developing something that will work for the students, overcoming the challenges that we have and will have, and creating something that has a great user experience, because the idea is right, but creating a user experience that's right, that's a really big deal. And once we have that, and we know there's really positive feedback and people really like it, that's when you can really start thinking about what you want your ultimate release strategy to be, and really wrestle. I mean, we know what the IP issues are, but really wrestle with them. You don't want to make those, that's another thing I'll say. Clients often want to make decisions way too early before they even, have something. I can remember a client for a new IP, like creating a whole tax haven structure before they even knew that it was actually going to work, right? They were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to, be in Bermuda and do this and create subsidiaries for something that didn't even exist. So there is kind of a right time to do it. And it's probably when you have to be mindful of the possibilities all along, but it's when you actually know you have something, because people often overestimate the value of their own ideas.
And I would say, Jon was really helpful in that we started within this educational sort of scope, which I think gives you a lot more flexibility with some of the IP laws and so on. It's a lot more access to open source when you're using it. And we're releasing it to students to be able to get feedback from them. We do think, though, this can have potential application beyond the university. And we think of that two ways. A lot of great ideas come from universities into broader society. Plus, we always try to remember at UBC, the taxpayer is paying for a lot of what's going on here, along with tuition. And there is an access to justice crisis. We keep using the word crisis, and it's not even a large enough word. Nobody can afford a lawyer these days. In very few circumstances can actually someone privately retain something for ongoing litigation and so on. Pretty well in over half of court cases, at least one side is self-represented, and sometimes both sides are self-represented. So when we got thinking about this idea, we started seeing, and I think it was part of the motivation, that yes, this could be great for students. It also could be useful for society. Okay. A lot of people are going to be making their own submissions in a courtroom. That's a simple reality we're at. And we're trying to change that, but we're not going to change it easily. They have so many other things to worry about trying to understand the law, but wouldn't they like to practice their submission in a virtual environment? Wouldn't that just seeing the physical setup of the courtroom and the perspective they're going to have at the podium and get used to questions coming from a judge could be incredibly valuable. Also for lawyers, many lawyers are doing pro bono work, or they're doing work that is only minimally retained, and they're essentially doing most of the case pro bono. They may not be able to afford, which can be very time intensive, setting up a practice of their submissions, getting 4 other lawyers over to play roles. Would it be useful for them to go into a virtual courtroom and have the chance to roll it through? So we didn't let that idea, as Jon said, stop us from saying, okay, we now have to start signing agreements with who's going to be able to use this technology. And if you use it for a financial purpose, these things will happen. It motivated us in terms of developing this because we think it can even expand beyond students. But part of that limited rollout idea, kind of like first generation, second generation, let's use probably the easiest IP format in terms of educational purpose within our university, which also has some issues. I mean, you forward an email with someone else's email. I've been learning, oh no, that's a violation of privacy laws. So we have to keep an eye on some things, but it's a safer environment. And I think it gives us more time to focus on the product and not worry about signing agreements with outside agencies who want to use our technology.